Food for me has always been such a medium for conversation and I suppose connecting with people as well, kind of being able to share that with everyone every night, or kind of being able to share the result of that every night is something that's extremely special for me, and it just kind of keeps me wanting to go back.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. When it comes to food, deconstruction and reinvention rarely live up to the comforting hug of the classics. Dishes that transcend generations, often with a hallmark of simplicity. With the constant evolution of our dining landscape, there are still some chefs elevating the classics and reminding us what's so special about them. Laura Rheinlander is a chef at Sydney's Bar Vincent. Laura, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to get you on the show. Late last year, I experienced one of the best prawn cocktails of my life, courtesy of you and your kitchen. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Bar Vincent.
I think Bar Vincent, it's not really about doing anything particularly new. But yeah, I think it's just doing classic dishes just really well, with a massive focus on just, I suppose, making everything as delicious as possible. And yeah, creating quite a special dining experience, I think, in that way. Just, yeah, quite unpretentious food, done with a lot of consideration, I'd say.
Well, I've got a lot of soft spots, but I certainly have one for a prawn cocktail. Tell us a bit about the one that you're doing there.
Yeah, it's a dish very close to my heart. Yeah, again, I think we just put it on for Christmas last year just because it started off as a bit of a joke. But yeah, just the classic poached prawn, iceberg lettuce, ridiculous tiny little martini cup, lashings of cocktail sauce. Yeah.
Do you have a secret to poaching the prawns for that dish?
We spent a little time Googling how salty just the ocean was, and then just kind of made up a little fake seawater at work and poached them in that. So yeah, I think that was the secret. But
well, I think it's something you should get back on the menu next Christmas. But you've had a fascinating career, which we'll get into shortly. But take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
I don't think I realised until kind of recently how big of a role food sort of had in my family. I think my parents always kind of put quite an emphasis on being present around food. It was always something that we kind of shared, whatever sort of emotion we were experiencing. It was always sort of the medium for kind of conversation in our house. If something great happened, something not so great happened, it was always, we'd just, talk about that over a meal. And yeah, it was always a very sort of like present thing for us. So I think that's kind of been a thing that's come out in my cooking now, but I don't think I'd ever really made the connection until recently.
Are there any sort of dishes or feasts from when you were young that really stand out for you?
Yeah, for sure. But I think off the top of my head now, I can't really remember. But I think when you're put on the spot, Mum was a great cook. She always, I think my grandma as well. My grandma lives in Germany. So when we went over as a family sort of to visit, I think we would just spend the whole day cooking, especially to just do a really beautiful lunch, because we never used to see each other that often. So it was always this big celebration of food when we used to go over and visit as a whole family. But just really beautiful classic food, poached salmon with hollandaise and asparagus, or some sort of roasted pork loin and mustard sauce, really quite classic German cooking, which I never do now. But yeah, I just remember it was the best thing to share with everyone.
Tell us about that period of time, sort of after you left high school. You weren't originally going to be a chef. You were a biomedical student. Tell us a little bit about that and what lured you away from it.
Yeah, I gave that a red hot crack, for for a year. Yeah, yeah. I'd moved out of home and I started my degree, and I was just kind of poaching eggs around town a little bit to, just to get some money in, and I'd kind of taken a break from it, just because I wasn't super sure, if I was gonna stick with that long term. And I thought, take a year off, just work a little bit, see what you're gonna do, figure it out. And I'd been cooking, but not really seriously, like just working in a few friends' cafes and, doing a couple of little bits on the side. But I was working at a cafe, and one of my mates came in, and he was working at a really lovely restaurant, in Brisbane at the time where I lived. And he said they needed a barista for the weekends. And I thought, yeah, great, I'll go make a couple cups of coffee on the weekend. And then that kind of turned into one of the apprentices had left. And yeah, I don't know, I just put my hand up for it. It was a bit of a split second decision. Put my hand up for it. And I started my apprenticeship. And that was kind of the first time I'd really sort of thought about food like in a professional aspect. And yeah, I just kind of rolled with it and just kept saying yes, really. Yeah, that's.
Take us back into the kitchen when you were an apprentice. So it was at Gage in Brisbane, which was carved a new path for Brisbane. Do you have any stories of what it was like in that kitchen?
Yeah, it was. I loved it there. Everything was just, yeah, it was so new to me, which was great. And I just kind of had danced in as like an 18 or 19-year-old. And I just don't think I stopped asking questions. And God bless all the boys working there. I know, like, it would have been so annoying, but they were so patient, and just so happy to teach. And yeah, I just started cooking there and kind of just worked my way through there, and yeah, learnt so much. It was, yeah, such a great restaurant. At the time, it's closed now, unfortunately, but so many new sort of modern techniques I'd never even heard of, before. So that was a great sort of introduction. Yeah, a really great introduction into my career.
What did you do after you left there? You were up in Brisbane.
Yeah, I was in Brisbane. I'd seen, I think Six Penny had posted an ad on Instagram. They were hiring an apprentice, and yeah, again, I think after work, I sat down after work and just typed my resume up and sent it through. And yeah, I don't know, I didn't really think I'd even get a call back. And then yeah, Dan called me and he said, can you come down at the end of the week for a trial? And I was like, oh, yeah, all right, sure, cool. Popped on a plane, and yeah, it just ended up working out. And so I moved down, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after. So yeah, it was all, very fast. And yeah, I moved down and just started, yeah, pretty much packed everything up. And yeah, started up down here. So that was a massive move, actually.
Take us back to that time. What was it like for you leaving Brisbane and sort of entering Sydney, a much bigger market in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think Brisbane at the time, what was that? Nearly 3 years ago now. Is quite small there, and it's kind of like this bigger country town where everyone kind of knows everyone. And I'd been working at Gage, and I just didn't really feel like I was drawn to go work anywhere else at that point, especially because there wasn't a massive offering of restaurants there that I felt really, really drawn towards. So I had kind of thought about moving to Sydney. I was like, I'll do it next year. I'll work this year. I'll do it next year, when I'm ready. But I think there's never really that sort of point. And then I think I just got kind of pushed into it, or forced to make that work, which I'm so glad it did, because I think it's the type of thing you hesitate with a little bit unless someone pushes you into the deep end. So yeah, I kind of just, yeah, as I said, sent my resume off, wasn't really expecting anything. And then it was just kind of this whirlwind that in, 3 weeks I'd set up in a different city.
What was it like for you? So you were starting to build your career and COVID was going on, you moved to a new city. What did you think about that sort of career as a chef at that time?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. I moved here. I moved here into this random house that I'd found on like Facebook Marketplace like 2 days before I moved down. Like I'd video chat these two boys in the bathroom during service, and we kind of decided, all right, cool, we'll move in together. Which in hindsight was so stupid, but I'm so glad that worked out. But moved down, and then yeah, the end of the week was lockdown, or they'd announced we were going into the first lockdown. I just thought, oh, fabulous! I like don't have any of my belongings with me. I just got like a suitcase which had a few chef shirts, my knives, and a couple bits and bobs. And, oh, great! I don't even have a bed yet. It's like squatting in this random house, and then yeah, we'd kind of just went into that lockdown, which was a bit of a shock. Yeah, it was a bit of a freak out, but Dan Puskas was just the best. He was like, we've hired you. We're going to get through this. No one knows what they're doing. So was very, very grateful that he could have, threw me a line and kept me on during that time. Because I'm not really sure what I would have done otherwise.
Sixpenny has become one of Australia's very best restaurants. So take us into the kitchen and what it's like working with Dan and the team.
Yeah, that was such a shock. I think I got there and everyone just moved like twice as fast as we were moving in Brisbane. It was just completely different. It was a completely different format, to gauge where I'd worked in as well. And just the quality of food that was going out and the caliber of cooking was just so high, which I am so grateful I got to cook there. It was just such a push, I think, for me to be working alongside such a talented team. I think it just makes you kind of really push yourself to try and keep up with everyone else. I think I was, so green when I started there. And yeah, it was great. Dan was so patient with me. So everyone was so willing to teach as well, which is something, so grateful for. Is something I also kind of take forward in how I kind of communicate with the people I work with now. But yeah, I think the first few months were like a little bit of a shock. I was also so glad that I had kind of started and we'd all gone into the lockdown. So I was like, oh, fabulous. Like, no one knows what they're doing at the moment. So maybe it's a little bit less obvious that that I'm not really sure what's going on because everyone's kind of in this new playing field. So yeah, we started that bakery and everything and just kind of adapted, and yeah, it was good to kind of just figure that out alongside everyone else.
Sixpenny's evolution sort of includes having a farm at one time and growing things out the back and a real amazing connection with producers. Do you have any stories of sort of produce and producers during that period of time?
I think during we always had a little courtyard out the back, which was quite lovely, being able to kind of, run out during service and grab whatever was growing, an East Hyssop or some rock ale. We had this beautiful lemon verbena tree that just surprisingly just the most resilient little lemon verbena tree that just made it through every season. So it was really beautiful kind of having that out the back to just pull on during service if you needed to run out and grab something. That was quite beautiful. At the time, I think we were using sticks as one of our main suppliers for vegetables. And to this day, Jimmy, our farmer, or sort of the guy that was liaising with us, I cook for him like once a month now at Bar Vincent. Once every couple of months now at Bar Vincent, which is really beautiful to kind of still have that connection where, he comes in and still so interested in, what I'm doing. And it's really lovely to be able to kind of sit down and, cook a meal for him and do something special when that whole time at Sixpenny, you take such care in dropping off such beautiful produce. Yeah, it was, wonderful again.
Sixpenny is known for its incredible sort of technical precision, but also quirkiness and sometimes a play on classics. What did you take from your time there?
I think simplicity, or just such an emphasis on simplicity, has definitely been something that I've grasped and really taken with me. I think, especially with Dan as well, like he was just always sort of trying something new or trying to tweak something in a little way, but also just not being afraid. Like if it doesn't work out, it's sort of part of it as well. Like I think we had so many fails there as well while we were coming up with new dishes. But I think, just taking that and being, it's fine if something doesn't work out, like use that as a lesson and then come back and revisit it, and just kind of having fun with it has been a big thing I've taken with it. I think just really showing focus on the food that you're cooking. It's not necessarily much on the plate at Sixpenny, but everything's done with such consideration and such focus. And I think that just is something that translates to when you eat it. So that's definitely something I've taken with me.
This episode is proudly supported by Montague, handpicked for you.
The things that we're really looking for in plums, first of all, they've got to be sweet. We're really looking for a full flavour explosion in our plums. Red flesh is critically important to us, higher in antioxidants, so all that good stuff. And then we're also looking at a slightly firmer texture, so there's almost a little crunch. That's the real driver for us.
For more information, go to montague.com.au.
Bar Vincent's a very different proposition to Sixpenny. How did that gig come about?
Again, it was also a bit of a split second decision, but I'd heard about it, just word of mouth, which I think is how these guys have really done it at Bar Vincent. It was just word of mouth. I'd heard about it. I think I got on a Friday off work really last minute, and I went in for lunch and just sat at the bar and had a couple of bowls of pasta. And I just fell in love with it, as I think a lot of people do here. You just get swept up in the charm, but the food was a lot more sort of in line with the food I see myself cooking in the future. So I was just, I just asked if they were hiring. They were like, oh, not really, but if you want to, leave your number, maybe we'll give you a call. And I was like, all right, cool. I put my number down. It was like 2 weeks and I hadn't really heard anything. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just drop in again. I was pretty persistent. And I'm glad I did, because they wrote my number down wrong. And they said, we'd actually just had someone finish up if you maybe want to start doing a couple of days. And I was like, oh, all right, sure. So I was doing a couple days a week here, and I was still working full time at Sixpenny. So it was a few months where it was a bit of a push. But I ended up finishing up at Sixpenny, which was a massive decision for me as well. Especially to go do something that's pretty much, I think, the opposite of the style of dining that I'd become, so accustomed to. But it was, I think I just felt, it was time to move on and kind of cook the food that I feel very, feel inclined to do. So that was kind of how bar bidding came around, and I've stuck around for a while now.
Well, we mentioned the prawn cocktail at the top of the show, but what's some of the dishes at the moment that sort of really speak to what you're talking about here, the sort of food that you see yourself doing when you have your own venue in the future? Yeah,
I think a lot of the pastas here I find really quite special and beautiful. Like, it's nothing, reinvented. Capelli with some saffron and clams, it's been done 100 times before, 100 different ways, but it's just sort of a dish that I cook every single time, and I'm still excited to cook every single time. And people are just the response to it is just so positive time and time over again. So it's sort of those classic dishes that I just I don't get tired of them really. We've got quite a few like little house classics that stay on. I just sort of love that feeling of every time you eat them, like it's just so delicious. You just kind of keep wanting to go back for more and more and more again. And that's sort of something we kind of, I think, strive for here a little bit, like that sort of point where something is just, so delicious. You kind of can't help yourself for going back for a second or a third mouthful, even when, you're probably way too full anyway. But I think that's quite a nice sort of moment when eating. Yeah.
Tell us about some of these house classics that probably couldn't come off the menu.
I think the agnolotti, Delphin from, Piedmont, really quite simple, just a, silver beet, parmesan, nutmeg, and a little mixture of the different offcuts of meat that we have, just braised down, just, swimming in some sage butter. But it's just that super sort of comforting food that I think draws people back here time and time again. And, just fish, like a whole fish, cooked whole, it's such a beautiful thing to share as well. It's so like interactive, and you just get so much beautiful flavour from just having fish cooked on the bone and, having it actually just cooked through. I think often going out to a restaurant, which I love as well, having, a piece of a fillet of fish that's, a little bit raw in the middle, which is beautiful. But I also think there's something that's quite homey and nostalgic about just having this whole fish that's cooked through with whatever garnish it is we choose to do on the night. But just kind of being able to share that with someone, I think, is really beautiful. I'm trying to think what else we do, classics. Our little beef tartare as well. Again, from Piedmont, but just olive oil, salt, and like some beef. And you kind of think, like, the first time Andy was kind of walking me through that and how we do the dish, I was like, oh, all right, like every time I'd done tartare in whatever venue it was always, 4 or 5, different mix-ins to make it something. But to have something so simple as just, we've got this really beautiful beef, we're just going to season it with olive oil and just enough, salt to really bring it together. And then you try it and you're just like, this doesn't taste like, 3 ingredients. This tastes like this beautifully complex dish, but, it's so simple, and people love it. So
it usually takes a lot of years for chefs to show that maturity and restraint on a plate and pull back rather than sort of have the urge to put too much on the plate. What's it like in the kitchen there? Is there an urge to put more on a plate, or how does it work?
Yeah, not at all. I think it's such a unique relationship I think I have here in the kitchen. Like, I came in, I think, I was 22 when I started. I came in as pretty young. I was working with like 3 45, 50-year-old guys. So it was just a bit of a funny dynamic anyway. But it was, they had such this beautiful, intuitive cooking style, and so simple as well. So I think I'd come in from, quite a background of fine dining, and we would kind of, share ideas, and they would just kind of show me, all right, cool, this is great. Well, let's pare it back a little bit. And then you take a few things off the dish and you've just got, like, especially with the quality of produce, that we use, is just, there's no need to overcomplicate it. Especially Andy in the kitchen here has just been the best, and so receptive to input as well. So he might come up with the concept of the dish. He might want to do like some sort of tomato salad. I'll be like, all right, cool, how do you want to do that? He's like, oh, not really sure. And then I might put something together. And he's like, all right, great, this is good. Let's pare it back a little bit. Let's do this. And it's kind of this sort of compromise of the dish. And we just, it gets improvised a little bit on the night, but each dish sort of is like a bit of a conversation between the two of us, and we kind of have this back and forth of input of how we want to do something. And then obviously, because he's just worked in the kitchen for so long and has, been doing this style of cooking for so long, he's got such a knack for creating food that's so simple, and he just knows like where you kind of need to put like what details you kind of really need to put attention to. So that's been something that I've definitely picked up and really tried to focus on. Like, you just kind of knows when to stop and when you've got enough on the plate that everything just kind of sings the best it can. And after you get it to that stage, then you don't really need to do anymore.
The thing that's amazing about Bar Vincent is it's not just about that sort of simplicity and stunning sort of food. It sort of feels like it's been there forever, and it's sort of tucked away. You wouldn't know about it unless you knew about it. How do they manage that sort of atmosphere and to create such a unique venue that really feels like it's a local sort of dream?
I think because it did just kind of pop up out of nowhere. I think the space that we're in was vacant for years before they signed the lease on it, Andy and Sarah. It'd been a restaurant like back in the early 2000s, I think, and a few other things have kind of like slipped in, but nothing had really been that permanent. So it was pretty much just a hole in the wall. And they signed the lease and started it up. But, you know, especially in today's age, it's pretty bold, like not really to attempt any social media as well. Like, it really was just this really beautiful organic growth of guests coming in, because it was really just word of mouth. So I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, this has been here forever. But it just had this really beautiful soft opening, I think, that took, you know, a couple of years to grow to where it is now, which is crazy because I don't really think anyone would open a restaurant that way now. But for them to just have such faith in their product and what experience they're trying to give to people, to just really back themselves enough to just be like, you know, people will find out it's good and they're going to come, and just to stick with that has been a really beautiful thing to see as well. And now, like, I've never worked in a restaurant that's got the most loyal, like, customers I've ever seen in my life, you know. Fiercely loyal. But such a beautiful, like, returning, yeah, you know, Tuesday nights, it's like you just look into the room and you just know, like, every single face there. It's like families that come every week, or it's a couple, you know, couples that live around the corner that, you know, they book in twice a week, and you know what they like to eat, so you might make something a little bit extra for them and keep that on the side just in case. And it's a lot of hospitality that come in just because I think the food is so sort of unpretentious and familiar in a sense, that still so exciting to go out and eat. I think it's a very, you know, it's a really comfortable and cozy little venue, and that everyone knows, like, we're not trying to do anything crazy and new or reinvent anything, but just kind of, you know, sticking to our guns and making food that is really fulfilling for people. Yeah, so I think just the way they've done that and just having it grow in such an organic way is really beautiful.
If you think back to sort of how you were when you got that random opportunity in the kitchen at Gage compared to sort of now at Bar Vincent, have you changed a lot in your sort of thoughts and approach to eating and food?
Oh my gosh, like, I don't even recognize, like, I think what me when I was like 18 and just like ridiculously eager, bouncing off the walls, like ready to cook, where to, you know, and ready to do all these like new exciting like techniques and all these fun like crazy flavors and whatever, and now just kind of reverting to this style of food that is just quite homey in a sense. Yeah, it's just the total opposite really. I think looking back with a bit of perspective and hindsight is a bit wild to think, you know, how far I've come in what it's only been maybe 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And to kind of appreciating such different aspects of cooking and of dining as well. You know, I didn't really think I'd ever see myself cooking in such a more classic and simplistic style. But yeah, such a change, yeah.
Well, the team there are very sort of shy when it comes to the media, and they've built an incredible establishment that, as you mentioned, has the most fierce fan base in Sydney, I think. What do you love about what you do?
Oh, I love cooking for a start. Like, I think for myself, it's just something that I find so fulfilling, and just brings me so much joy, the actual act of cooking itself. But I just think like working with people as well and cooking for people is such a beautiful thing. I think, again, as I was saying, like food for me has always been such a medium for conversation and I suppose connecting with people as well. I mean, you spend all day like cooking, you know, with people, for people, using like based on relationships you've kind of based with people to get produce and whatever ingredients. So I think kind of being able to share that with everyone every night, or kind of being able to share the result of that every night, is something that's extremely special for me, and it just kind of keeps me wanting to go back day after day, and it keeps it, you know, I just don't get sick of it. I just love it.
Well, as you know, the Deep in the Weeds team love what you guys do at Bar Vincent as well, and it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear a bit of your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon. Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. I'll get the prawn cocktail back on.
Amazing. Yes, please. This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.